the kids from leaving the nest.
Yeah.
Claiming it's too soon or they're not ready. Any excuse to keep them at home.
What about it?
Lots of parents are like that, but I told myself I'd be different. I'd never keep my little girl from flying. I don't want to clip her wings. I want her to soar. I hear you scoffing. You think I can't do it. You think I'll keep her all to myself.
Oh yeah.
That's what scares me. As much as I want to let her fly, I don't know if I'll be able to let go when the time comes. Maybe I'll panic, get in her way, hold her down, all to keep her safe. Oh, Marlene, I wish you could be my baby girl forever.
I doubt you will. So here's something really interesting about that. So we all go through this, especially as we look at the world. And I mean we as in parents all go through this. We look at the world and we're just so worried that our kids are just going to be eaten alive by the world. And it's like, Barrett's like, oh, I wish she could be my little girlfriend. No, you don't. No, you don't. You do not wish she could be your little girl forever. No, you don't. Because such a wish just has so many horrific implications, you know? But one thing I wanted to point to there, and it's something I talk about in my week on Aristotle, the telos. So for Aristotle, his ethics is more teleological, as in like what would make the best of humans. And one thing he discusses in his Nicomachean Ethics is looking at other animals and imagining they could reach eudaimonia, you know, because only humans can reach eudaimonia. But he does try a thought experiment in order to discover what eudaimonia would be for human beings. What is eudaimonia for like the animals? Well, for a fish, it would have to be akin to being in the water or breathing in the water. I mean, I don't think this is not Aristotle's example. This is I want to say Daniel Robinson's from Oxford's College. This is his example where he talks about, you know, for heaven's sake, a fish out of water is literally the phrase we use to explain how a creature is just outside of their natural habitat to an extreme extent, you know, a fish out of water. But he does quote, when he's talking about Aristotle, he does quote, I think it's Edmund Burke, a bird in the cage puts all heaven in a rage. Let's see. I think that might be Burke. Let me double check. For some reason, I'm thinking it might be a bishop. Let's see. Bird in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. William Blake. Yeah, so it's William Blake, not Edmund Burke. So William Blake, a bird in a cage puts all heaven in a rage. And the idea is a bird, if it could ever achieve eudaimonia, which is like the ultimate aim of the bird, given its natural advantages, or basically what its definitional characteristics. And if you put a bird in a cage, you're not only clipping its wings, you're stopping it from being. You're stopping it from being the best that it could be. You're stopping it from transcending. Because if a bird could transcend, it would have to transcend in the purview of an avian or the ability to fly. So its ultimate aim would have to include the ability to fly. So that's where he's getting at there. So to clip its wings would literally to be taking away what fundamentally separates that animal from every other animal in existence. Avians are defined by their ability to fly. That's why in the Galapagos Islands, when they found the flightless bird, it was so curious because up until then, it was like, you know, all avians were defined by the ability to fly. So it's like, well, to clip the wings of a bird is to transgress against that animal in a very fundamental way. You take away its nature. You take away its intended purpose. Now, the contra argument to this would be, the is ought. Just because something is scientifically is so doesn't mean it ought to be that way. Just because all birds fly doesn't mean that they ought to fly, is usually the case. But, the argument, the other one, the argument like the natural law theorist and and Aristotelians would make is that, well, wait a minute, you still gain an understanding of what it means to thrive as that animal using its character. This is again, it pops up in the biblical ethics book that I'm talking about now. The way biblical ethics seems to look at ethics is in three distinct purviews. You have the conduct, you have the character, and you have the goal. They give the example of the boat, You have the character of the boat itself. Its hull, what is that? The ship's, the word is eluding me. The mast, right? The sails, So you have the sails, you have the mast, you have the hull, you have the characteristics of the boat itself that allow it to, thrive. But you also have the conduct of the people in the ship itself. The conduct of the ship matters just as much as the character of the ship. And then in addition to that, the goal of the ship itself. So that way, like if you're a ship and you're just focusing on the character, well, your conduct at sea might invite ire because you're just like smashing into other ships and stuff like that. So it's not only the conduct of the ship that matters, but it's not only the character of the ship that matters, but the conduct as well. And even with those two, it's still not enough in the biblical ethical purview, because you still need the goal of the destination of the ship itself. So what am I getting at here? It's like, well, you need to identify, in order to identify the conduct of something, you've got to examine its teleological purpose. At least that's the argument being made there. So I think you can gain a lot of insight. I mean, this is what Kant does. This is what Kant does when he starts analyzing how nature perfects things over time. I often think of like the pomegranates, the pomegranate seed, and how nature perfected packing as many seeds as possible in a single pomegranate, and how what was that famous painter Leonardo da Vinci used that in order to pack cannon pellets within the cannon itself. I saw that on a TV series. I don't know if it's actually what happened. Maybe I will definitely check that out, because you folks are worth that. But still, even if it didn't happen historically, there's still a lot of insight gained into that. Nature perfects. This is very Taoist, by the way. You can learn a lot about nature itself. You can learn a lot through nature on the perfection of certain motivations or certain behaviors. So the way Kant looked at it is like, well, nature perfects, and as it whittles down, and nature does not give faculties willy-nilly. And the faculty of reason, I'm sorry, David Hume, doesn't seem to be what leads us to happiness, because if anything, rationality is contra to happiness. So the faculty of reason must be used for another purpose. And he surmised the faculty of reason was used in order to understand the moral law. And so he prioritized rationality as being like the foremost in what allows us to exercise the moral law, which is why he goes into autonomy, et cetera, et cetera. So getting back to this, when you take away something's fundamental nature, you take away its ability to transcend that. And when it comes to your children, you need to have the courage to send them off, so that way they can exercise their autonomy. And it's so difficult because you just want to keep them close, because the worst thing to happen to a parent is for a parent to bury their children. That is the worst thing to happen to a parent, So it's like, obviously you have this protective nature to keep them close, but keeping them close is akin to clipping the wings of a bird. You are keeping that animal, you are restricting that animal's ability to transcend by taking away its very fundamental nature of what defines it and separates it from every other animal. you know? And so that's why the clipping of the wings is so tragic in the explanation. It's also a reason, I mean, it may be because Avicenna and the recital of the birds and things like that in my mysticism class. I absolutely loved my mysticism class. Shout out to Mohammed Azapor, one of my favorite professors in San Francisco State University. I absolutely love him. Yeah, he really set me on the track of the transcendental application of philosophy. Anyway, you know, just to shout him out. I digress. When I see a bird in a cage, it actually does affect me at a fundamental level. It makes me sad to see that. It's a sight that I cannot stand. I've never had a bird in a cage. I've never had a bird as a pet. And if I had a bird as a pet, it would be one that I would try to keep like I guess like a falcon, the ability to go out there, although I'm pretty sure they cage them as well. I know nothing about falconry, so I don't know why I brought that up, but I was thinking like, so the reason I brought that up is because maybe there are pets, people who keep birds as pets, but they allow them to, you know, venture around and fly around and stuff like that. They don't necessarily keep them in cages. I don't know if that's the case, but I don't want to make an assumption that all people who own birds, all of them keep them in cages. Some of them might. I could surmise that some of them might keep them free. But when I see a bird in a cage as a pet, it does affect me at a tragic, fundamental level. You know, and it could be the recital of the birds or something like it. It could be that aspect, or it could be that very Aristotelian teleological concept of eudaimonia, where I'm just like, you are taking away this creature's being by doing that, and it just seems like an incredible sin to do so. So I kind of see where Barrett's coming from here, you know.